Hey, it's Missy.
And it's April.
And this is SheelaNaGig. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for listening. It's SheelaNaGig in the late afternoon, early evening.
So you know what that means.
Yeah, therefore we are having a little glass of Sauvignon Blanc, along with our special guest, Julie Roland, who's amazing.
Julie Roland's back.
It's part two with Julie Roland. We're super excited.
And we insisted that she get a glass of wine, and wouldn't you know, she's also drinking Sauvignon Blanc.
Look at us. Are you going to do toast now, April?
Yes, let's do a toast.
A toast to what?
Here's to a fabulous podcast followed by a fabulous summer, because we are rolling into summer.
I love that. And to female magicians and aviators. How about that?
Yes. I'll drink to that.
And yeah.
I'll drink to that.
I'll drink to that. Okay, let's do this. All right.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Cheers. Slancha.
Well, thank you for having me back.
No, thank
we're
you.
thrilled.
I hope that everybody got to listen to the interview, which was our last episode. Remarkable woman, remarkable Sheela, as we like to say.
Absolutely.
And, we're excited because we're hoping to have Julie as kind of like an ongoing guest. We're going to talk about an amazing magician today, but we are hoping to bring her back to talk about some aviators and some other things as well, right?
Yeah, speaking of, Julie just shared with us that she is performing as a magician in a very special venue in San Diego.
She's also doing a one-woman show, though. Okay, wait a second, Julie. You were holding off on us because I did not know about the one-woman show. So you're also an actress with a one-woman show. Okay, so tell us about what you got coming up.
Sure. So on May 3rd at Charade Speakeasy in San Diego, I've got the whole night. And so I'm going to put my one-woman show on twice at least, and maybe have some little acts in between. But the one-woman show, I'd say it's a one-woman show. There's also a piano player, but he's a man. So there's one woman. But we take your suggestions and we brainstorm a musical with audience participation. I mean, you get to stay seated, but as often as you want to throw suggestions out, you can throw wrenches into the plot, whatever.
So you do improv.
And I brainstorm the musical. I give you snippets of the songs and the scenes, and the premise is basically that it's day one in the writer's room, and what we're doing is we're throwing ideas around to write the next Tony Award-winning Broadway musical. But today, it's just day one in the writer's room. So we're just brainstorming. But by the end of the show, you kind of feel like it's destined for Broadway. And you sort of feel like you just saw this whole show. And the show is called Just an Idea.
Oh, my... And you sing?
I mean, I don't think I sing well, but I'm very clear with the audience that we're not going to cast me in the musical. I'm just one of the writers. So I sing enough to give them just an idea of what it could be.
Well, let me give you some perspective. I'm not a singer, and I sing so badly, I would never sing in front of in front of people.
She sings all the time in front of me.
I think it helps to be very uninhibited. So I push myself out of my comfort zone, but I give them enough. You get enough songs and slices of songs and everything like that. And so, it sort of feels like you saw a musical, even though what you really saw had no costumes, no props, no set, just me. But it's very entertaining. People love it.
Well, that's fantastic, though. Your show sounds amazing.
Yes, this sounds amazing. You do improv and singing as well, so things that we did not know about Julie Roland.
Yeah, we spoke to you for over an hour last time, and this somehow never came out.
She's very modest. April, I think she's really modest, don't you?
Definitely.
I think we got the modest air last time. We had to pull a lot of things out of her, and it was just like, oh yeah, by the way, wait.
And when you
have to keep talking, that's all. We just have to keep talking because I will keep getting to know you both too.
Yeah, well, we're not as interesting as you are, so that's why you're our special guest and we're just the hosts.
Yeah, we're just the hosts. When you were talking about your magic show, you were mentioning characters. What's characters?
Yeah, let's bring that on.
So May 9th at the same venue, I'm performing magic, but I'm doing what I call character magic. And a lot of people are familiar with character work within comedy. They might go see improvisers or sketch comedy, but they're seeing not just the comedian doing stand-up and playing themselves, but they're playing a role where the character itself is part of the comedy. And so, for example, Groundlings they are known for their character comedy. On SNL, there's a lot of strong character comedy. Like Kristen Wiig is known for some characters, right? She's not just like hilarious, which of course she's hilarious, but it's also the characters she's invented. They come back. You see them over and over again, and she's sort of known for a bit of her character work. So I basically develop different characters, and sometimes I perform magic as them. And so there's a comedy that is accessible because I've invented a character, and then it's like, what would it look like if this character were a magician? And I know last time we talked about how does a female magician dress, and that I like to have fun with that. And this is sort of exploring in an entirely different direction, where I leave behind Julie doing magic, and I do magic as a role that only Julie could come up with, but it's so different than me. Can I give you an example? I'll tell you who I was on.
Yeah, I want to hear.
Please do.
Yeah, so probably a character that I've developed that is now somewhat known around San Diego. Like, he has his own following. He's called Professor Boats. And he has a full beard and a captain's hat, and he's this salty man from the sea type character. When he comes on stage, he goes, "Ahoy, it is I, Captain Boats." Like that's his and he's dressed in nautical attire. And so he is doing magic, and he has a whole personality that's just his. And then he'll perform magic for 20 minutes. He'll come off stage. The audience will see some other act. On Saturday, they saw burlesque from other performers. The burlesque goes off stage. They get a little break. And then I come out again, and now I'm Captain Boats, and I'm a pirate. And I'm Professor Boats' brother, but I'm his, and so this is like
the evil brother. Yeah.
And so it's just so whimsical, but because I'm coming out as a pirate or as the sailor character, there's all of this comedy that becomes available that you're not used to seeing in a magic show or in any comedy show either, really. So it feels like a more special experience, I think.
Oh, yeah. And didn't you tell us you came out and did a magic show as your grandmother?
Yes, exactly. So I've done that too. Yeah, I wore all of my grandma's clothes, and then I came out and I was introduced by the host. The MC said, "Welcome to the stage, Grandma Rosalind," which is literally my grandmother's name. And then I come out wearing all of her clothes, and I perform magic, doing kind of a 1930s New York Jewish accent, and in my own way, honor my grandmother, I think, but do magic as her.
That's great.
That is so cool. I knew I wanted to be your friend.
Yeah.
From the moment I met you, I'm like, I want to be her friend.
Silly. It's very silly, but it keeps it
very silly. It's very silly. It's very. I'm realizing that May 9th is the night. I think that is a Friday night. It's a Friday night.
It's a Friday night. Yeah.
Because that could be like my Mother's Day gift.
Oh, what a gift to yourself. I'm out of the country, and I've been so
She's out of the country.
I'm out of the country, and I've been so excited about this trip until this moment, and now I'm like, damn, I'm in Spain.
Wow.
Poor me. Oh.
Ladies, there will be other shows, I promise.
Okay. Well, please, I hope so.
Thankfully,
I really want to go.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, today we're very excited because we decided to kind of bring Julie into the fold here by talking today about a famous woman magician that you may have heard of her, but maybe you haven't. And again, this is like something about our podcast. I should give our little intro. I always say each week we explore our own SheelaNaGig, a woman whose strength and perseverance has led her to greatness, who empowers us. Could be somebody you heard of, could be somebody that you have not heard of. And we just want to give this lady some light. So we are given the amazing magician, wonderful magician, Dell O'Dell, some light today. And Julie is going to join us in that conversation. So I'm super excited because I went down the Dell O'Dell rabbit hole and found out so much, and I adore her. I want to be her friend too.
Well, is Dell O'Dell still with us?
Dell O'Dell is not, but Dell O'Dell is actually the stage name of Odella Newton. She was born October 20th, 1897, and she was an American magician regarded in her profession as a pioneer who provided a role model for modern female performers. She was noted for being one of the first magicians to appear on television. She had her own show, The Dell O'Dell Show, on ABC's local station in Los Angeles in 1951. She was also one of few American women to have her own circus, the Dell O'Dell Society Circus, which toured the Midwest in 1925 and 1926 before becoming one of the most popular female magicians on the nightclub circuit during the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. Dell O'Dell also performed in vaudeville and burlesque, and her skills included juggling furniture and lecturing on physical culture.
Okay.
I love that she juggled furniture. Have you seen some of those pictures, Julie?
Yeah, she's balancing them also in crazy ways.
Crazy ways. And is that defined as magic? I think so.
Sure. I mean, it could. I've seen so much at the Magic Castle that if that's what counts, if you can perform it at the Magic Castle and we call it magic, then yes, it definitely counts, because I've seen shadow puppets and I've seen ventriloquism. But to me, it's all vaudeville, and vaudeville, like that kind of vaudeville and circus, is really, to me, even bigger than magic, but it's all like magically entertaining. So yeah, just
yes. Did I mention my son's first nanny in the last podcast? I don't know if I did.
I don't think so.
She performed with the LA Freak Show. And they performed at the Magic Castle, and she ran a daycare by day, and by night she was a freak show performer, and best freaking nanny I ever had in my life. Shout out to Alice from Freak Show Deluxe. That's what they were called.
Did she ever overlap it? Did she ever do some of the freak show acts at daycare?
Well, one time, it's interesting you ask that, Julie, because one time we picked her up, and by this time her husband Thomas, who was like her, he ran Freak Show Deluxe with her. He had come home and he was kind of watching the kids, and we were kind of talking to her off to the side, and she was just talking about putting a spike up your nose. Yeah. And she said just very casually, well, people don't realize like the nasal cavity's on a slant. They think it's just, so if I take this spike, I'm not going to go like this. I'm going to go like this. And she sat there and like put like a 6-inch spike up her nose in front of my husband and I. And we were just like, wow.
And you left this woman with your child.
well, yeah. At this point, Thomas was with the children. She didn't do it in front of the children. But there was like 2 days later, and I said, did our nanny put like a 6-inch spike up her nose the other day? And my husband said, yes, she did. And she'd been like a medic in the Army. Like at one time there was like a medical emergency. She was the best, honestly. She was the best freaking, and a friend of mine went out to pitch a pilot, which was called, what was it called? A Freak Show Nanny. And so she was amazing. So shout out. My whole point being, you could have Freak Show Deluxe at Magic Castle. We saw them there. So maybe you can have somebody, balancing furniture as well. I think it's got a broad umbrella, I would say, totally. Right? Magic? Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. Actually, speaking of broad umbrella, one of the most amazing things I've seen at the Magic Castle was someone who spun a parasol, like, an old-fashioned umbrella, and they had it was Burger King or McDonald's, but it was a wrapped cheeseburger that starts on the umbrella, and they're just spinning it, and the cheeseburger is spinning around it and is unwrapping itself.
Oh, no! My goodness.
Oh, wow.
And he unwrapped entirely a burger.
That's insane.
That is amazing.
It was one of the coolest acts I've ever seen there. I was like, it's so creative.
Yeah, yeah. And where's that person now? You know, we haven't heard of them. We need to know more about them.
Yeah,
for sure.
that's amazing.
I'm going to look that up. I'm definitely going to be looking at that up on my phone at like 3 a.m. tonight.
It was a special act. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty freaking amazing. But anyway, again, we digress and we do that in SheelaNaGig. We do
Bring ourselves back to Dell O'Dell. Well, I'll jump in a little bit if I may, which is just because we're on the subject. I mean, I think what's amazing about Dell O'Dell in the first place is she's sort of defining the genre. So when we talk about what is magic, I mean, she's coming she's the daughter of a guy who ran a circus, but she's born in the late 1800s. That, like, the heyday of magic, I think, is like Gilded Age America. It is sort of the mid to late 1800s, but bringing the genre to the masses happens as you get film and television and traveling acts. And so she's emerging right at that moment of showbiz. And so it's a cool thing where someone who's coming from the circus is, as America moves into TV, movies, and like a different kind of showbiz, she gets to help define what does circus look like on this new type of stage, and vaudeville is kind of what fills that gap. But like, you know, so when we talk about is it magic, I mean, she's defining the genre. It's comedy, it's rhyming, it's everything. You know, so of course it also includes juggling and juggling furniture. So it's just cool to see that, like, the way what she's using in her performances also marks that time period and fits really nicely in taking us forward as well.
Yeah, no, that's a super good point, because like Julie said, from the time she was really little, her dad was Lucky Bill. Lucky Bill. Yep. And he was a performer himself and kind of taught her the tricks of the trade. She started out juggling, and then eventually, like I said, she started her own circus. She had her own wagon with her name on it, which I think is so cool. So yeah, it totally makes sense. And it was great that she was able to make that transition, you know, doing those kind of things and then into magic.
But that's my question to both of you, because I did not do my homework and find out more about Dell O'Dell. So I'm wondering, how and when did she sort of expand her act or open her act into magic? And that wasn't something that women were doing at the time, is that right? What do we know what inspired her or how that started?
Well, yeah, but can I say one more thing about Lucky Bill, just because it's amazing?
Oh, sure.
I just have to mention that, you know how Lucky Bill got his start?
No.
Well, it was a freak birth of a calf with multiple tails.
Oh, wow.
So he was actually a rancher. He lived on a farm, and he was always into weird shit. And he was like, "Oh my God, look at this calf with multiple tails. I'm taking this on the road." And that's how he became, that's how he became, Lucky Bill. So I just wanted to mention it because I think that's pretty cool. And and apparently O'Dell's mother was also a circus performer, and she ran away with the circus strongman, I heard, which was kind of sad for Lucky Bill. But, you know, somebody's got to run away with the
Maybe
circus
Bill
strongman,
was a little unlucky.
Right.
Who among us hasn't wanted to run away with the circus?
Exactly.
But to answer your question, April, so, I mean, as you can imagine, if you're growing up with a family of circus performers and that is kind of the family business, she's performing at a very young age. I think, elementary school years, she's juggling. She's doing that as a hobby, but that's also, she's just surrounded by that. And so by the time she's in her early 20s, she's launching her own show. And I think she does that with her husband. But at that point, she's doing sort of acrobatic juggling, balancing acts and things like that. And then it just gradually transitions from there. It becomes more, it finds its way to the vaudeville stage. And then, eventually she's gets her own television show. But in a way, as she's mastering all of these skills, there's also becoming more and more formal opportunities and stages for her to perform it on. So, like when she's just a school kid, she's learning how to juggle, the best stage for her kind of is the circus. And that's what she has the family circus right there. And then as she gets older and vaudeville is picking up steam, now she's can is able to transition into that. And then as it starts being televised in different ways, and it's kind of the rise of Hollywood, she finds her way into that. So she's kind of growing within the art as, like I said, as the art form and the platforms for it are expanding too. But she is like one of the mothers of magic, and there are not many. I mean, to this day, only 8%ish, 7%ish of magicians are women. So still a big glass ceiling there. And so when you are thinking of, well, who were the original female magicians, Dell O'Dell is one of the, she's one of the sole matriarchs.
Absolutely. Yeah. And she actually also, I think it's really interesting because in addition to being the performer she was also promoting healthy practices for women. She was all about, being a healthy woman. So she started creating, juggling training as a form of like fitness for women.
Well, I guess you
and physical activity.
Your upper arms.
Yeah, and then she created and sold her own line of fitness items in tandem with being a performer, which I think is kind of interesting. And then she met her husband, like you said, and that's kind of when she kind of started in full swing, with starting to perform for beyond what she had been doing. And he was a Swiss juggler named Charles Carrier, and he apparently was also very talented at balancing things. He could slice an apple in the air with a knife on a 12-foot pole on his chin.
Wow.
But you know what she could do?
What could she do?
She could balance a freaking couch on her chin. She wins.
So Charlie is actually, he's her second husband. And the first husband she had, I think, was helpful too. That's who helped her start her first show. But what's cool is she was originally a juggler. She finds her way by her second husband to this very prominent juggler. But at that point, she really had begun doing magic. So I think by the time she marries Charlie, he's now the juggler in the family. She's finding her way as a magician by then. And just, so we're tracking the timeline. She's in her early 30s now. So, between starting her own show, it's about 10 years later. Now she's, on her second husband, and she's becoming a magician. And what's cool is she's my age. I'm 31. She's around 31 right at this moment. And by the time she's 35, 36, she is the queen of magic.
Wow.
It's amazing.
That is amazing.
It is amazing, yes.
And one of the things that, if I could just interject, and Julie, you remember we said this about you, we notice all of our Sheelas do so many different things. They don't just do magic or, they do so many things. And so it was really interesting when you shared she was into women's health and exercise and products as well as all this performing and the evolution of her performing.
Yes.
From a circus woman into a magician.
Yes, totally. And apparently she started out she called herself the Dippy Mad Magicianess. And she seriously encouraged housewives to keep fit by juggling potatoes. So that was part of the whole thing, when she was starting out. That was a big thing. Again, she was combining the act of fitness with the act of being a magician and a performer.
I don't know as much about her, promoting the health elements, but love that for her and for women of her time. But one thing I like about her is sort of in the same way I was just talking about, how does a female magician dress? And the fact that I do character magic, it's to kind of access these different forms of performance. One thing that was special about her was she didn't have a specific lane in magic. She would do kids' birthday parties. She would do drunk people at a late night nightclub, and so and that's, I think, pretty interesting about a magician at all at that time. We normally have a very clear sense of who a specific magician is. Even today we do, David Blaine does the same kind of street magic, low-key performance always. He doesn't suddenly become, wear the tux. That's not him. But then David Copperfield, we expect something specific from David Copperfield, and he's not about to be in sweatpants just doing stuff on the street. That's not how he does magic. But so in the same vein, 1800s, early 1900s magicians. They're wearing the tux look and they're on a big stage, or maybe they're sort of clowny birthday party magicians, but no one's really doing all of them. But Dell O'Dell is. And so and maybe it's because no one knew what a female magician should look like. They didn't know what to expect from one. So she was able to try out all these forms. I'm not really sure. I don't know the history there of how she ended up doing that, but it is rather remarkable about her. And it made her such a chameleon and so much more successful, I think, because of that. Because she has all of these she gets to have repetition of trying out the magic with all these different audiences. So
Yes.
I'll say personally as a magician, I do birthday parties. I'll do, anywhere from Magic Castle to a corporate event to a birthday party to a speakeasy. And putting myself into those different scenarios means I do more shows and I get more practice with the improvising of who's my audience and what works here and what doesn't. And so in a way, because she was breaking the mold, maybe she was taking whatever gig she could get. But what that gave her was this incredible skill of knowing her audience in maybe a deeper way than one would if they stuck with the same kind of audience or same kind of show from the beginning.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. And, she actually dubbed herself a comedy magician. Comedy magician, which I think is kind of funny that she was working several mediums. She was an acrobatic, she was an acrobat, she was a juggler, she was also a comedian. And I think it's interesting too because she kind of, like I said, her mom ran off with the strong man, so she developed her own strong woman act kind of early on too, where she could climb up one side of a ladder and down the other with that sofa balanced on her chin. Not even kidding.
Wow.
Yeah. And she also had this amazing little snappy chatter she did. We were listening to some actually before we got on the podcast today. It was like little rhymes, little, little quips, quick little, just funny. She was very funny. I even said there was a little bit of Lucille Ball to it almost,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that became kind of her trademark, right?
Totally. She's super famous for that. And so in general, that's a really fun part about magic is that there's the technical aspect of magic. And then there's what we call the patter, which is the banter. It is all the, it's the dialogue, which can be very quippy. There's some magicians who just have a music soundtrack and they do elaborate magic and they don't even speak. But she was a pro at making everything that she's saying above it be essentially its own stand-up comedy routine. So you get stand-up comedy routine with magic happening at the same time. It's very impressive, anyone who can do that. But she, I think, really was one of the first models of how that could work. And then, yes, you mentioned that she does these rhymes. I mean, she was, I think, pretty famous for that, too, that, she'd have these little rhyming couplets or whatever. That was, somewhat of a trademark for her specific patter also.
Yes, yes. Michael Claxton actually wrote a book about her, and he talked about her patter, and he said, she's forgotten by the general public as she died in 1962, but she is best remembered in magic for the cheesiest part of her act, which was the sing-song patter. So, apparently, he kind of points out that she was an incredibly talented performer and magician, but people remember the patter more than they remember anything else. So, which I guess is fortunate and unfortunate.
Yeah,
she's remembered for something, but maybe not the most important part of who she was, really. But by the 1940s, she was very popular. She was ranking in the top engagements, including New York's trendiest nightclubs, and she was pretty amazing, and just doing so many things. Oh, so we were talking about her husband. He actually became her assistant and her collaborator.
Really?
So I love that she had the male assistant.
Yes.
Just the opposite of what we normally see. She had the male assistant, and he was also her collaborator. He was really good at making her props. And so he was kind of like a real craftsman. So he was really good at making her props for her as well. So
I just had this image, Julie, of you having a male assistant come out in a bathing suit. The typical, female magician's assistant comes in this skimpy little cute outfit. I just Sorry.
Yes.
I digress.
No, it's a funny idea. I mean, I think we might do well to stop objectifying the assistants in general.
It's true.
But I agree. It would be fun to subvert the expectation there. Yes.
Yes.
I certainly wouldn't mind. I think that sounds fun.
Right. She also lived in a house that was full of animals. I love animals and practical jokes. And she constantly threw parties for her wizard friends and the neighborhood children. Aww. So she had these just total eclectic parties where like everybody was invited, but she always had, magician friends, wizard friends, psychics, tarot readers. So they would all come, but then they'd have all the kids from the neighborhood come too. And she loved to cook, and she loved promoting the image of herself as the ideal modern woman, both domestically and theatrically. And the cover of her souvenir show, Dell O'Dell, on both sides of the footlights, showed her in an apron preparing dinner and then bringing out a rabbit in a shiny black dress, which I think is just awesome.
Such a great image.
Yes. And again, but when she started working in front of the camera, I think that's when her life really changed, and she really kind of came into her own. Don't you think, Julie?
Totally. Well, I mean, the thing is, when you are born into the circus and you're immediately juggling, performing, get your own show, are balancing couches on your chin. It's a funny premise to be like, when did your life change? I mean, like, your life is already so kind of marvelous and outside the norm, and so it's like at that point, what's weird, unusual, what feels like a big feat? You're literally climbing up ladders, balancing a couch on your chin.
I can't imagine.
like what's the benchmark of novelty for you? But it certainly was like a huge win to get the Dell O'Dell show. I mean, she wasn't just one of the first female magicians to have a show. I mean, she's one of the first magicians with a show.
Yes.
Oh, that's an important distinction. Really interesting.
Yeah, it's true. And it was interesting, too, because as I was kind of doing my research, it looks like she did try the burlesque thing in her earlier days. And there are some photos out there of her, doing the burlesque thing. But it was just kind of like she was just trying it on. I think she was trying it all on for size. Like, where am I going to land? What am I going to do? I'm a performer. There's all these mediums, vaudeville. She did it all. Yeah. So, but I think it said that she was a little bit embarrassed later on in life by some of her burlesque photos. She didn't think that best represented who she really was. But, at least she had a history. That's what I always say. When I look back at like embarrassing things about myself, I always say, at least I have a history. Right?
Totally. I mean, maybe it's a different thing. I mean, she dies in the early 60s. It might be a different thing then looking back at burlesque photos, but in my mind, it's just, of course she did it all. She grew up in the circus and then went to vaudeville. Like, it's the equivalent of someone who changes their major 5 times. They don't know if they want to do sociology or history or anthropology or communications or whatever, before they settle on their major and what they're going to do when they grow up. She's in a different kind of world, so she tried it all out. I personally don't think the burlesque is embarrassing, but there was a different level of like modesty that existed at that time, I'm sure.
I think it's super cool, actually. But yeah,
I think it's awesome. To me, she's just such a Renaissance woman and like uninhibited, unafraid to try these new things. And with everything she did, she was a trailblazer. So I think, it could have been that even doing magic was going to be seen as, like that could have offended some people's thoughts of modesty, that women are doing magic, a lot of these things were men's jobs. And so people could have found it, she could have felt embarrassed or something about anything. So I'm just like proud of her for putting herself out there, because at that moment in time, like, who knew what would be taboo or not? And
she's just trying it all on for size. Just, why not? Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of something you said in our last podcast interview about when you're the trailblazer, there are no rules, there are no roadmaps. You're defining it as you go.
Right. And that's both liberating and scary, like you don't have an example that shows you where the lines are. Like there aren't necessarily boundaries, so you have to find them on your own, so you could kind of cross lines you didn't know were there, and that can cause trepidation, but also you might offend people. You don't know. No one's tested the material out on an audience before, so you're putting yourself out there first, and that's really daunting and could conceivably backfire, have these consequences. On the other hand, no one's done it before you, so there are no rules. You're not even breaking rules. You get to pave the way for yourself. And so there's, of course, all the reasons why that's scary and daunting, but it also means, sky's the limit. Do it all.
Sure.
Yeah.
And by 1935,
Absolutely.
she had established herself as the queen of magic. She was booking out months and months and months and months in advance in nightclubs all over America, and she was performing more than 100 new tricks up her sleeve at these different nightclubs. And she also did, like Julie, she did army camps, theaters, private homes, hospitals, and hotels. You name it, she was just there doing it. I love that she owned 2 houses side by side in Queens, New York, and one of the houses was filled completely to the ceiling with her magic tricks.
Oh, wow.
Which I think is amazing.
Julie, don't you need an extra house for just your magic tricks?
We'll say about a quarter of my garage is costumes.
See, there you go. You got to have that, right? You do. And they say that every, magic dealer in America just loved Dell because she would buy like any new trick they had that was on the market. And somehow every single one of those new tricks would end up in her act.
Wow.
And so she often would buy like 3 or 4 of the same tricks even to share with her other magician friends, or to, if it didn't work out, she would, the first one, it was like a not broken or something, she'd have it. So she was always, she'd go to these magic stores. I'll take 4 of those. So they loved her. And she often performed multiple venues too at the same evening, multiple venues on the same evening. So then she also had like her props, her extra sets of magic tricks ready ahead of time. So she was a great businesswoman. I mean, she was always, or business person, I should say. She was always thinking ahead of things too, which was, kept her on top of her game for sure.
That part I relate to also, is that I'll perform, I'm constantly running from event to event, or from work to school to an event. And so my car is full of actual costumes. I have multiple decks of cards and magic materials, plus, a suit at the ready at all times, but also I have, Professor Boats and Captain Boats. And so if I'm not performing, though, and I'm giving you a ride, you're like, why is there a hook and a sword back here? Why is the Queen of Clubs in your back seat? I'm like, don't worry about that.
Right, exactly. But you got to have what you need, right?
Yeah.
You got to have what you need. And she was really rough on things too. I remember.
Was she?
Yeah, I'm kind of rough on things.
You are. I am too. We're not dainty ladies.
My mom was always like, "You're so rough on things." I was always. And my mom would say, "You're like a boy. You're so rough on things." That is just so stereotypical, but that's what she would say. And but she was really rough on her props because I guess she loved to kind of throw things around and just be really fluid. And it was said that in 1942 she went through 7 sets of linking rings alone because she just could not. And that's another reason why she probably bought 3 and 4. Tricks so that she would be well prepared. But, she worked nonstop. That was the other thing. Because like I said, she would often do 2 shows in one night, different venues. And this went on for decades. She just worked just consistently all the time. And she was just super driven, super determined. And she thrived on applause. She loved that applause. And, her career was nothing short of just a whirlwind. It was a freaking whirlwind is what it was, for sure. Okay, so she also loved to hand out stuff at her gigs, which I love. I remember when I first started playing in bands, I would hand out pixie sticks. It was like my signature thing in Detroit. Like I was the girl who would hand out pixie sticks. I did it for years, and then one day I stopped. But she would give out loop pencils, paper dolls. Oh my God, paper dolls. I love paper dolls. Puzzles, novelties, and her circle of, she'd have her magician friends, but she also had, writers and artists, and they were always coming up with different advertising ideas too. So she was always like asking her friends, she was doing well. So she always kind of wanted to create this, salon, this way so everybody could be successful. So she was always kind of like, hey, what ideas do you have for things I should hand out? Hey, you want to help me paint that? You want to help me create that? So she was really good about, just kind of including everybody in the arts in, her ambitions, which I think is really admirable for sure. And it was in the 1950s when she was just, she was performing multiple shows in a single day, and she was just nonstop. And that's kind of when, around 1950 is when she and her husband moved to Los Angeles. And it was also then that she launched her show, the Dell O'Dell Show, which was a weekly magic show. And it was off to an amazing start.
This was not just the first time that a female magician had a magic show. She's one of the first magicians to have a TV show. And, also, like I mentioned, her ascendance is happening at the same time that just the way that we consume art and entertainment was changing in the U.S. and around the world. So it's cool to see what started in a circus and moved to vaudeville now is on television. And at the time, like, TV was not immediately just a usual forum for people, people weren't all of a sudden just watching TV all the time. It was kind of a weird medium at first. And so she's not just a groundbreaking female magician. She's not just a groundbreaking magician, but she's kind of just a groundbreaking person for using this new medium of television and finding a way to reach her audience that way. So it's awesome that as we as a society are learning how to consume entertainment in a new way, one of the things that we're consuming there is Dell O'Dell doing magic on TV. What a fun way to do it. And her show was, of course, very dynamic. It's not just magic. She's still having the pattern, the rhyming. It's very interactive. And so it's this nice blend between vaudeville that we're used to and what we, the future of TV performance in general. It's just pretty cool that one of those trailblazers just within that moment happens to be a female magician.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And let's take a moment to play a little clip from her show right here.
Oh, yeah.
Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, in Davenport, and are we the early birds? This is Dell O'Dell speaking. Here's my husband.
And this is the IBM headquarters of the
International Brotherhood of
That's right. All right, introduce the gentleman.
Oh, what can I say? Gee, Manendley, you should have been in Chicago.
Yes?
Yes, I got away from there at 4 o'clock this morning after going to bed at 3.
Uh-oh. What'd you do?
Well, we did a little bit of everything over there. We made a few records there in Chicago, too.
Oh, the kind you find in the police station? No?
No, you'll find these in a rubbish pile.
We turn you over now to Dell O'Dell, who is a tightrope walker. We'll walk across the Mississippi River at 3:02 today. Good evening.
Yes, and I'm going to carry with me Mr.
Mahendra, what do you want me to say? Nothing. Goodbye.
Come on, Doc, tell us something.
Doc Harrod. Doc Mahendra's going to do the vanishing bird cage in a bathing suit.
And what are you going to do?
I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to watch him.
Well, we're going to end up with Old Lang Syne.
Awesome.
That was amazing. That was, you know what I love? I love that she interacts with her audience. It's just so funny. She's so natural. Body, but funny, but also respectful at the same time. Yes, she's kind of out there, but very respectful. And I love her laugh. Her laugh freaking kills me. Do you love her laugh?
I love everything about it. I also, they call it an audience participation program for children. Like, I think that was a part of what they were trying to do there. And to me, it kind of plays like a precursor to Sesame Street, like it's like everything she's doing, it's accessible for all ages, which I think Sesame Street is too. But it's this feeling of how do we truly engage everyone? And to me, it's when you take someone who has an experience in the nightclub, but doing the birthday parties and doing all these things, it's no wonder that she can make a television show that actually is going to be appealing to audiences of all ages too. And so her whole persona within it is just so inviting, kind of no matter who you are. And I think that's probably, it's both what makes it special, but also is probably what made it so successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, and she, so that show we were saying, I found the actual date. It premiered on September 14th, 1951. And by 1953, she was nominated for an Emmy Award.
Wow.
Which, again, really speaks to the diversity of that show and just her broad appeal. Yeah. And she continued to tour as well when she was filming her TV show. She was touring, and she also made her own line, developed her own line of magic tricks. So she ended up opening her own retail magic shop on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood.
Well, so she was an entrepreneur on top of everything else.
Yeah, she also, isn't that cool? And and you could find her there on, any given day. You could just kind of walk into her magic shop and she'd be there, working the counter, doing a few tricks. Oh, hi there. Which, she was so down to earth. She was so down to earth, which I absolutely love about her. There's so many things I love about her. In the 1960s, she started to slow down a little bit. She got cancer, which is super sad. And but before we say that, we should just talk about her a little bit more. I don't want to get to that part yet. I don't want to get to her dying yet.
Yeah, well, So I'll ask a question. So, what happened? She had this show. She was at the height of her career. She had a retail store. How does this remarkable woman's story come to a close, and how do we remember her?
Well, we remember her as an amazing performer and pioneer, for sure. But sadly, we say sadly. My husband teases us because we say sadly a lot.
Missy's husband keeps telling us, no more sadly. But it is sadly. So
he's like, what's more sad? And then he'll give us a scenario. What's more sad? Sadly? Anyway, but cancer did slow her down. And that in February of 1962 at age 64 or 59. I guess her birth certificate was doctored, so they're not quite sure if she was 64 or 59 when she died. But she died of cervical cancer. Oh. I know. And it was super sad because she was such a champion, and she was a champion as a performer, a magician, and she worked so tirelessly, you know what I mean, to promote her magic and her performance. She was so amazing.
And I'll jump in, April. You said the word champion. It's funny you said that word. I think in her obituary, they call her champion. And the obituary is in this magazine called Genie Magazine.
Ooh.
Is still around and is like a nerdy magician. It's nerdy magician literature. But I think one special to get an obituary in this magazine of magicians, but of course, and then to call her champion. It's special because she was known as the Queen of Magic. I think they called her the leading lady of magic, but those are gendered compliments. Those are superlatives that invoke her gender, but champion doesn't. Champion is just, she's not the queen champion or the lady magician champion. She's just champion. So by the time she passes, her
right. And I mean, like you said too, she was truly one of the most popular magicians, of her time. Not women magicians.
Right.
But
a lot of her titles, nevertheless, invoked the fact that she was a woman. But when she dies, it's just champion, and I think that's cool. I think that's great.
That's great. And Los Angeles Times just concluded, there was a 1956 review in one of her theater shows, and they said she takes second place to No Man.
Oh.
Which I love. It's so true. It's so true. We love the Dell O'Dell.
Oh.
Yes.
I'm so glad I got to learn about her, because originally we had talked about each of us doing our own study and research, and I confess I didn't do my homework, but I loved getting to ask both of you these questions and learn more.
April, I think it'd be really good if you learned to balance it like a chair on your chin.
A chair on my
I mean,
chin.
you're a little tiny. You're a little small.
I'm under
I
5
learned
feet.
more too. I learned about all these health benefits, and now I'm thinking I got to juggle potatoes to stay fit.
That's right. That's right. That's what we should all be doing.
Get your upper arm workout while we honor and remember Dell O'Dell.
Absolutely. But I do think
Have you
maybe
been
for one
working
of our
out?
reels.
No, I've just been juggling potatoes.
Yeah, exactly. We should do a reel with us juggling potatoes.
Yes.
All right, everybody. This was such an amazing. Julie, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for coming
having me
back.
ladies. It's
It was so good, and I can't wait to you get to choose next who you want to talk about. Think about who you want to talk about. A Sheela.
think about it.
It doesn't have to be necessarily an aviator or a magician. It could be just an amazing Sheela that you want to share. It doesn't
Including
matter.
from your work with child advocacy and law.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So you can think about who you want to bring to the forefront. And
but we have to have you come back.
yeah, and April and I will be your willing listeners, and we will let you lead the podcast. That's what we would love. So I know you're going to New York, but thank God for Zoom, right? So it's all good. But thank you to Julie Roland. Go see her, everybody.
Yes.
Go see her in San Diego on May 3rd and May 9th at Charades in San Diego. Charades Speakeasy, I should say. And again, Julie, thank you for being with us today. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We're so happy you were here. Keep listening, please. Send us your comments, your questions. We would love to hear from you and your Sheilas. Send us those too. All right. Have a great night. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
SheelaNaGig, unabashed in your